Next Gen fam, we're having too much fun. We literally are waiting for this countdown, and we just cannot wait to rock and roll. We got a star-studded session for y'all. So Next Gen fam, wherever you're tuning in from, let's get loud. Let's get loud.
Today's a really special episode. It's kind of the 2-for-1 deal, where we're gonna have the best of two guests, but she's one superstar entrepreneur. I'm fired up.
5 guests and 1 guest. It's 5 guests and 1 guest.
Comments already going. Jayreen,
what's
Noel.
up? Jayreen, website designer extraordinaire. Tuning in right now, just imagining building a website for VC, entrepreneurship. Noel coming at our live from India. What's
Noel,
up,
great to have you here. We're
Y'all,
fired up.
We have a lot of folks that are going to be tuning in and joining us today, wanting to learn about how to build businesses, how to sell businesses, how to get started as an entrepreneur, what is an entrepreneur. So we got a lot. Chris R., what's going on, my man? Let's get loud.
Something that I want to leave our audience with to start, and I want your comments. We want you to reach out. Redefining entrepreneur. Those who were with us on Clubhouse last night, we had a tremendous conversation. We're going to ask our guests today to dive in exactly there. But we got so much in store. Chris Rontanini, Rachel Lee Gross, thank you for tuning in.
Huge shout out to Jamie. Oh my God, Jamie, we're your biggest fans. All right, making this happen, dealing with the tech difficulties left and right. Boom, boom, making it happen. Let's get rocking and rolling. Should we bring it on?
I think we're ready, Jay.
Y'all, we're about to bring you Leah Solivan, general partner at Fuel Capital, the founder of TaskRabbit, a total champion for diversity and entrepreneurship, innovation, the gig economy, a total legend in all ways. Whether you're tuning in LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you are watching this live on our podcast or after the fact, we're pumped to have you here. Leah Solivan to the Next Gen Momentum Audio stage.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
We are so grateful to have you. We've been ready for this one for a long time, Leah. So I'm going to dive right in. I want to take you back. It's the late 2000s. You're up in Boston. Shout out New York. We're up in Boston. You've got some NSYNC probably on in the background, right? Class of 2000s maybe.
Definitely.
And your dog has this brilliant idea, $100 million idea. Take us back to that night. What the heck was you thinking of? And how did that lead to your company?
Yeah, well, it was also cold and snowing outside. We're in the middle of this famous, Boston winter snowstorm. And we're getting ready to go out to dinner and realize the dog was out of dog food. I mean, everybody's been there, right? And so we thought, wouldn't it be nice if there was just a place online we could go, say we needed dog food, we're willing to pay someone for their time. And maybe there was even someone at the store at that very second, and it was just a matter of connecting with them. And this was way back in the day, right, where it was crazy to jump into a stranger's car. There is no way you're going to invite strangers into your home, like unfathomable. But I was an engineer and I loved technology. And I saw an opportunity to take social technology. Facebook was really just emerging out of the college scene. Mobile technology, the iPhone, if you can believe it, had only come out 4 months earlier.
Wow.
And then location-based awareness technology. And so mashing those 3 technologies up together was really the inspiration for TaskRabbit, and I have to thank my dog Kobe for giving me that inspiration.
Kobe gets
shout out Kobe.
He got equity stakeholder in the company, and it turned out very, very well. One of the wealthiest dogs that we personally know of. Leah, you started your career in the corporate world. You were at IBM. You worked on a lot of projects. Take us back to that time period. So many of the entrepreneurs that are tuning in, they have that entrepreneurial spirit. They want to have that entrepreneurial mindset, but they're wondering, I'm in this corporate setting. Is it for me? How do I navigate? So hearing how you started there and what you learned from there is going to be so fantastic for our folks listening in.
Yeah, I mean, I was an engineer at IBM for 8 years. I started at a smaller company called Iris Associates, which were the original developers of Lotus Notes and Lotus Domino. Lotus bought Iris, IBM bought Lotus. We all got merged into IBM. Beautiful. And so it was a great training ground for me as an engineer to understand how to build software that millions of people around the globe were using on a daily basis. And it gave me the exposure to a code base and to, cross engineering across different teams and organizations. Like, it was a very good learning experience. But even inside IBM, I always had these little ideas or little things I wanted to patent. And, I think for me, it was about just having that entrepreneurial mindset of whatever was in front of me. It's this idea of like, you can see something 1,000 times. And if you can look at it in a different way, the 1,001st time, and say like, whoa, this, shouldn't work like this, and I can make it better. Even inside a big company, that's something that you can do. That's something you can start with, entrepreneurially. And then, from there, it was about having this mega idea that I literally just could not stop thinking about. And I think that's the thing. It's like, if you hit a problem in real life and you just can't stop thinking about it, and you have a solution for it, that's what really makes like a purpose-built founder matched with the right market and the right product opportunity. And that's when the magic happens. And as an investor, I'm constantly looking for founders that are purpose-built for their specific opportunities.
I love that, Leah. And so many in our audience will resonate with the idea of applying the entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial action in whatever that might manifest at IBM, in your startup, in your relationships, your personal life, you name it, the applications are there and you are living proof of that. But I want to stay with that thread of you find this idea you're obsessed with, and then it must be the easiest path to, this huge exit, right? It's all pretty and flowers. Wrong. It's a tough world out there. So take us back to the early days. Kobe has this brilliant idea, and you're actualizing it in the field. What is that like? What are some of those early hurdles that you and your initial team members had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I wasn't surrounded by entrepreneurs at the time. My dad was in the Air Force for 35 years. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. It wasn't like I'd been around people creating their own businesses. I had no idea about how to raise money, how to talk to investors. I remember thinking like, oh my God, there's people that will give me money to build this. And then I was like, well, what if it fails? Like, do I have to give the money back? Like, I don't understand. Like, I could not wrap my head around this whole entrepreneurial thing, startup thing. So it was a huge learning curve. But, I think I remember having this conversation with myself, which was like, there's so much I don't know. There's so much I don't understand. Like, can I really do this? And then I just realized, you know what? It's not rocket science. Like, I'm a smart person. I'm going to figure it out. And so I think like one piece of advice I have is like, just don't talk yourself out of something because you don't feel like you don't know how to do it. Like, those are the things that you should go after, and you can learn, and you can surround yourself with advisors and experts that can help you get there faster. But just have enough confidence, believe in yourself to be able to take on new things. And so it was a lot of learning and a lot of, trial and error. And eventually I found 2 angel investors in the Boston area. It was about 9 months in to starting the company that backed me with $150,000, which at the time I was like, oh my God, I will never run out of this money. I can do so much with this money. And it was just about staying lean and scrappy from there.
Leah, you're an embodiment of that phrase on your pillow, which we have multiple people in our audience picking up on. Be that woman who decided to go for it. And even if you're looking at an opportunity, something you don't understand, exactly, that's the ding, 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 time to really tackle that and try to unpack it. So in that early day, you're trying to raise money, you're trying to build this company. Where were you getting the knowledge of how to do this all? Especially, now today you're championing so many women who are starting companies. Back when you were starting it, even less than today, what was the support system that you were putting around yourself? How did you even know how to navigate?
Yeah, I think, one of the big things I did was I just talked to anyone who would listen to me about the idea. And it didn't matter if it was like the guy next to me on the bus commuting into Boston, or if it was the mom at the coffee shop, or if it was a friend over dinner. And actually being able to just share your idea widely, getting feedback. But then it also allowed me to connect with people that could really help. And so I was at dinner one night with a friend, and she just said to me, you know what? I love this idea. You know who would like it? My friend Scott. You should just email him. And she gave me his email address. I had no idea who Scott was. I didn't care. I was like, you know what? AG says he's going to like this. I'm going to reach out to him. So I remember I went home Saturday night. It's midnight after dinner. I email Scott, and the next morning he writes back. When he writes back, I realize it's Scott Griffith, the CEO of Zipcar in the Boston area. And I was like, oh my God, okay, the CEO of Zipcar. And so he just a very quick note said like, hey, this sounds interesting. Why don't you come by my office this week and tell me more? And I was so nervous to go in and talk to, the CEO of Zipcar about this idea. But it turned out that we had a lot of shared vision for what we wanted to build. He was sharing cars in a community, in a neighborhood, and I was sharing skills and tasks. And there was both a marketplace model. And, Scott kind of took me under his wing and he let me work out of the Zipcar office for free for an entire year. I got to see him be a CEO and how he ran and built his team. I got to interact with his team. I was sitting right in the middle of all the product managers. And so I could ask them for feedback about what I was building there, still solo, by myself. And so it was, somewhat serendipitous that I made this connection, but it also wasn't. It was because I just hustled so hard and just talked to everyone I could. And eventually that networking that you do, those connections that you're going to make are going to help build what then becomes this long lasting network of experts and advisors and mentors that really help you get there.
I love that. Franzi in the comments saying, just do it, right? You are putting yourself out there. As entrepreneurs, as founders, we are our own champions. We are the number one marketing lead. We are the number one sales rep, you name it. If we're not going to get out there, no one's going to do it for us. Leah, you are living proof of that. I love that this, you called it serendipity, occurred, but you made it happen, right? That's the beauty. You took advantage of it and made the most out of it. I'm sure Scott got something in return as well. And so this leads to you getting a team, perhaps. You have your first office makeshift at the beginning and then eventually your own place. But I want to go to a quote that we found before this episode where you were talking about a team and balancing a passionate, loving family with a robotic workhorse performing to the top, right? How do you think about that equation, especially at the early days?
We need to know.
I'm asking for me, right? We need to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the culture at TaskRabbit was always very familial. And I think it was that way for a few reasons. One, we're a very mission-driven company, right? So we're really about enabling this new way of working and helping people make money. And we were born out of a recession in 2008 and 2009. So it was a super tough time financially for people. But we provided these new opportunities for work. And so a very mission-driven company creates a very mission-driven culture and a very mission-driven team, right? That does feel very familial. We're all friends. At the same time, you've got to hit those milestones. You've got to hit those metrics. You've got to hit those numbers. And it's not easy, particularly in the early days. So I think it's like this balance. It's this mix of, can you be like a high performing sports team where it's like, you're there to win. You're there to hit the points and put the points on the board, but you also want to play with your souls intact, right? You don't want to win at all costs and just like, lose that mission and lose that culture that really is what makes the impact, right? On a more humanitarian scale. And so it is quite the balance. It's not easy. Sometimes you can go, too far in one direction or the other, and you're always course correcting. There's no easy answer there, but I think it's a mix of both.
The reason we appreciate the answer is because what you're saying is it's really hard to get it right. And you're constantly going to be working on it, going to go too far left, go too far right. As founders ourselves, we're constantly thinking about our team dynamic and we want to win. We're here to achieve a goal, but we want to love and appreciate the people and have the best time doing it. And we found something you tweeted out recently that the glamour is the grit, which is that on the journey, I think people are like, oh, the glamour, maybe when you arrive, big on the magazine, you get the exit. The glamour is in the grit. So what did that mean to you? And maybe you can give us like a story or an anecdote or just a picture in your mind of the glamour and the grit of your early days.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like you see the magazine shoots, right? Or you see the front page of the New York Times with these founders and these companies. And TaskRabbit was like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, all these different magazines, all these different things. And that's what people recognize and remember. And that's what they say, oh, like, wow, they've really made it. Like, it just seems so glamorous. And the truth is that it is such a grind. But I want people to appreciate the grind, not the glamour. Like, the glamour is a facade. The glamour is like, it's not real. It's like this beautiful icing that's put on the cake, but it's like the cake is the content, like the good stuff. And to me, when I think back about building that company, it's actually all those like little gritty, hard moments, like just in the trenches with the team. Like I remember one time we had this bug crushing contest where it was like, God, we were so backlogged in customer service with just like product bugs. And we just needed the entire team. It was like, I think 50 of us at the time to just stay late, stay through the weekend and just like find the bugs, crush them, get them to engineering, get them fixed. And so we made it a contest. We're like, whoever can crush the most bugs, just find the most bugs, log them in the backlog. This is not glamorous work here. Okay. But it's going to make a huge difference to our customers and a huge difference to the product overall. And actually at IBM, I started out before I was an engineer. I was a quality assurance engineer, so a QA tester. So I was like kind of good at finding bugs. So I was like all over this, like for the weekend, just like crushing bugs. Like no one was going to find more bugs than me, like full stop. And so I set the bar pretty high. And it was actually one of our customer service members who was answering phones who came pretty close. I mean, like within one or two bugs of me, of the CEO and founder, right? Like that was amazing. And we celebrated her and we celebrated her grit. And like, that's what should be celebrated. It wasn't like the magazine shoot and the Wall Street Journal article. Like it was those moments that are really inspiring when I look back.
Love that, Leah. For anybody else who maybe has the same image of a huge whack-a-mole game going on and Leah's just crushing it, getting all the moles left and right, we can so envision that because ultimately as CEO, as the lowest level employee, it doesn't matter. When we have to rally around a problem, an opportunity, we're all getting down in the weeds. We're all doing it. And to see you lead by doing yourself, that's powerful. I'm going to give a quick shout out in the comments here. We got my pops, who is our family's TaskRabbit for my entire life. Goodness gracious. I want to say though, Leah, you brought up the gig economy and a humongous part of TaskRabbit, maybe not when you were starting off, but by the end result and every single day in the workforce today, you're creating jobs, you're creating wealth, creating opportunity. How much was that part of the initial mission that guided you? And how did you balance, heck, we're a for-profit business. We're here to make money, one day maybe be acquired, pursue that path. But we also care about what our product means for the world. What were you thinking about there?
Yeah, I mean, I think because we were born out of a recession, it was actually fairly easy to have that mission of like, we're going to change the future of work and we're going to give people new opportunities to make money. And we're going to empower them to say how much they want to get paid an hour, where they want to work, who they want to work for. Like it was always the philosophy to have a platform that was controlled by the tasker. Like it was really up to them. Like we were never going to say like, you're deployed to this place and you're going to make this much money. No, that wasn't the deal. And so, from the very beginning, that gave us a couple things. One, it gave us a very strong mission and very strong alignment with our taskers, with the supply side of the marketplace. But two, it also made every transaction we did profitable because they were setting their own prices. We were connecting them with the clients who were willing to pay them. And then, of course, we took, a rate in between for making the match. But it was like a very straightforward business model. And so, at scale, these marketplaces become hugely powerful businesses, particularly when you get the flywheel going on both sides. But it really started with the taskers and like, how do we solve their opportunity and their challenges and make the platform for them?
I've heard you speak about in the early days and very much so now, everybody kind of has their own TaskRabbit story of like what they interacted with. Or I remember I was just telling Dylan, my friend Austin, I don't know if you're watching this. This is like 2010 and it was in Manhattan. And he told me, he's like, Justin, there's a service where we can get somebody to bring Pinkberry to us in my apartment. Pre-Uber Eats, I'm like, whoa, this is the future.
Mic drop.
Like it was just you invented a new market that obviously now is blown up to be such a huge segment of the economy. Did you ever worry at the early that you're almost pushing the needle too far? That you're like, there's no way, two-sided marketplace to make this all work? Like, did you ever think you're too crazy?
Yes, 100% all the time, every day. That was the most fun part of it. No, I think here's the funny thing, right? Like in 2008, when I started this company, people would compare us to, Cosmo.com. You guys probably don't remember Cosmo, but Cosmo was born out of like the early 2000s. And it was this, like, you could go on Cosmo and you could get like a pint of Pinkberry and, you know, bring it to you in New York or Boston. But it wasn't a marketplace. It wasn't peer-to-peer. There was no technology behind it. They were just losing a ton of money, okay? And actually, it made it really hard to talk to investors in 2008 and 2009 about TaskRabbit because they didn't understand the social component, the social networking component of it. And then that was a new piece of technology that was going to unlock this peer-to-peer marketplace. They always talked about Cosmo. And so we lost so much money in Cosmo.com. Apparently it was like, they like raised tons of money and then like burnt through it all and it was like one of the flame out stories, right? And so, listen, I was not the first person to have this idea. This was not my idea, but I was the first person to look at this idea differently and say, can we build it a different way? Can we use technology in a different way? Can we use people in a different way? And so it's funny because these things, they happen in cycles. And they're entrepreneurs are constantly improving things of the past and taking old models and making them new again. And that's why innovation never gets old. It never gets boring because there's always new things to innovate on with new technology to capture.
I love that. History is our best teacher in so many ways. If you're willing to put in the work, to go do the research, to analyze and think and find thought partners, we love that you're saying that. Again, I think we can all walk away with, don't try to reinvent the wheel always. Take something that's out there. How can you maybe see a new angle or see a new opportunity and 0 to 1 your own route in that sense? I want to maybe now move into the later part as you look ahead to the IKEA days, right? Everybody sees this 2017, your sale, humongous company coming in, but it wasn't always easy getting to that point. I know you talk about how it was a partnership before we were bought, right? Can you walk us through for the entrepreneurs who are glory-eyed thinking ahead to what that maybe looks like, the reality behind the curtains of this big exit opportunity?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, IKEA too, it's a privately owned, family-owned company in Europe. It's huge. It's huge. And it's not like, you know, the typical public company that you can easily navigate. No, it's like super private and, you know, it's still owned by the family. And so this was part of the serendipity too. And when I say serendipity, I mean like you make your own serendipity, but it's like we got an opportunity to host. And it was a bunch of different execs from different companies. IKEA was just one company. And they were coming over from Europe and they wanted a tour of Silicon Valley. And I was like, oh, this is going to maybe be a waste of time, but like, you never know. And so they had come by with this like tour of execs. I think like some bankers brought them by. And nothing ever transpired out of that like initiative or project, but we grabbed the business card of the person, of the woman from IKEA directly. We're like, hey, let's exchange business cards. And like, I want to talk to you. And so we stayed in touch with that one person. And we knew that like there was an interesting partnership opportunity to be built there. And is it IKEA US versus IKEA Europe? And like this global company, it's massive. It's like very difficult to figure out like who to work with. And we, at one point we were talking to like both the US office and the European office, but they weren't talking to each other, right? It's like so hard to figure out what to do. But what actually ended up happening was we started a partnership in the London store of IKEA, where you could check out IKEA furniture in London. And when you checked out, you could hire a TaskRabbit to go home and assemble it for you. And that was the very first little partnership that we did. That partnership ended up being so successful, and it was in the right market. London was a big market for IKEA, and it was a big market for TaskRabbit already. And so when we put those two things together, it really moved the revenue needle for IKEA overall. And for us at TaskRabbit, it was awesome. I mean, we got all this inbound work from the London store. And so then it became more of an organic, natural conversation. It's really hard to force these conversations into, you know, something that's going to become an acquisition or sale. But it was more natural. It was like, wow, like this is going really well. Like we should probably own you guys. We should probably offer this service in more places, right? And so, one aspect that I'm really proud of is that we were able to keep that TaskRabbit brand intact, that we had built such a strong brand over the course of almost a decade at that point, that they wanted to keep it and that they saw the value in it. And so, to this day, it's still under the IKEA umbrella, but it still has that same brand. And so that was just, as a founder, something that, I really loved seeing happen. And to this day, we can still see the TaskRabbit brand live on beyond me.
That's awesome.
And what's such a takeaway for all the entrepreneurs is that as much as it's a game of, building the relationship and blah, 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 you took complete ownership of, you made sure you had the relationship on your side, that if you're not going through a middle party. And then once you wanted to build that relationship, you said, all right, what can we do to start now instead of talking this big game? No, let's get started. Let's build that partnership.
Yes.
And then scale from there. So yeah, you're scaling, you build this partnership. It turns out to be super successful. Everybody knows the rest of the story. The day after, this is something that Dylan and I always want to talk with the founders about who sold. And you wrote an article talking about, in a very different sense, employees at startups, COVID, layoffs. What happens when you build so much of your identity into a company, into a mission, and then it's over, whether it's over for a good reason, like, whether you're acquired or whatever it might be. Obviously, it's not over, but it's so different. Or you're laid off. You're at a startup. All of a sudden, something shakes out. What was that like for you personally after that acquisition? How did your kind of feelings towards TaskRabbit change?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's still evolving, right? I mean, it's like we're now 3 years out post-acquisition. I remember the board call where we voted to move forward with IKEA. It was like very dramatic, actually. It wasn't what I imagined. It was like we knew we were going to do the deal at this point, okay? But like we took a formal vote one by one. It was like everyone went around and the investors went first, and then I went last. And every investor, they voted yes, but then they said something like really special about the company, or like, how they were so proud to be a part of it. I'm going to get teary-eyed right now. And it got down to me, and I was so choked up, I couldn't even vote, it was just like, oh my gosh, it really weighed on me. And so the next morning you wake up, right? It's all over. It's all done. And it's a strange feeling. It's a strange feeling when your identity has been tied to that company and to that brand for a decade. And I moved on now, and I'm at Fuel Capital investing. And for me, this is the dream job. And it's such a great fit for me because as an engineer, I get to dig into a lot of different technologies all the time. And it's just not one business. It's like hundreds of businesses. So I love it. But, it's like I have this attachment, to TaskRabbit. Now, 3 years later, what's really kind of odd and I'm still kind of grappling with is, I passed the reins on to Stacy, who, worked with me as COO for 4 years. Huge trust, huge respect for her. She stayed for 3 years post-acquisition with IKEA. And now they've just brought in a new CEO who, I don't know. I wasn't a part of. I don't know what her plans are for the company. And so that's a weird place to be, right? To still continue to see this company and brand live on, but be really 2 steps removed now from anything that's happening. I'm not a shareholder. I have no idea what's going on. And any decisions that are made, sometimes it can get a little weird because people do associate me with TaskRabbit, but I have no control, right? Or really no insight into what's happening. So it's something that's still evolving. It's an evolving relationship. Feels kind of weird sometimes, but it's also exciting to see what's going to happen next.
That is so special. Thank you for sharing that, Leah. I think it's very unique to see how, as you mentioned, it's evolving every day, and that will probably be the case until eternity. Your legacy, so much of you is tied up in something that you don't control very much so anymore, but that is a good thing and a beautiful thing, yet a challenge nonetheless. Weird. And you mentioned Fuel Capital. I want to talk about that for a second. Talk to us from the perspective that you bring now. You are a woman founder who has built and sold such a successful business. And now you're reaching out and saying, I want to find the next woman founder who also can do this and let them know it's possible, right? The stats are out there worth repeating. Less than 10% of capital from a venture perspective goes to women owned and founded businesses. So maybe from your perspective, now after you get around the table, what are you looking for? How do you figure, as a figurehead, as a thought leader, promote the next wave of female founders?
Yeah, well, there's a lot there because it's not something that we can solve on our own, right? And so at Fuel, my partner Chris and I, we've backed, I think 40% of our portfolio in our latest fund is female founded. And that happened very naturally. It's like, my deal flow, the people that come in and pitch us, it happens to be more women. It happens actually to be more minority owned as well and people of color, which is awesome. Yeah. And we can back those founders and we can help them and we can help build them up and open doors and bring our network. But then it's like, how do we get them to that next round? How do we get them to raise the Series A, the Series B, and beyond? And that is not easy. I mean, we can back as many founders as we can with, we have a $75 million fund. We typically write in about $1 million check when we back entrepreneurs. But it's like, there's got to be follow-on capital as well. And so some things that are happening that I'm excited about are, one, we're seeing more new funds getting formed that are being built by women, by minority GPs, by people of color that are running these funds. And I think just naturally, those people are going to understand the businesses in a different way that come in. They have different perspectives, right? And people, I think, just naturally resonate or want to back businesses that they understand or businesses that they want to use. Like it makes sense, right? And so getting more women and people of color into GP roles, not just at seed, but at Series A and beyond, is really going to help the ecosystem overall. The other thing that I'm really excited about is I'm really involved in an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I mean, this organization has been around 4 decades and has really evolved, in the more recent decades. And so there's chapters all over the world. It's a global organization. There are 30,000 founders, CEOs, members. And this is, once you get your company to a stage where you're making like $12 million annually, you qualify and you can join YPO. Now, YPO for me has been an incredible way to network, to get support, to really just have that personal board of advisors that has helped me, take TaskRabbit to the next stage, helped me think about what I wanted to do after TaskRabbit and get into investing full time. And so, that's another way of just adding a system of support and infrastructure for companies that have gotten out of that out of the gate, out of the seed stage. They're into building and scaling. How can we surround them with a network of people that are going to continue to help support them and help them scale? So it's a multi-pronged approach that's got to happen. But those are a couple of things that I'm personally excited in and interested in and seeing move the needle.
Leah, you are an ecosystem to yourself. I mean, you have just the amount of entrepreneurs and businesses and projects. And so we got to ask, before we let you go, only a few more minutes here, deals are coming across your desk left and right. I can't even imagine what your inbox looks like. Not even what my inbox looks like, and Dylan's, I can't even imagine yours. What are those things that are catching your eye? An entrepreneur is looking to raise capital, looking to get to the next level. What is like the type of, trait, characteristic framework that is like, I'm sure there are a lot. I mean, a 5-hour separate podcast to get into it. But any key teaser you can give us of what's really catching your eye these days?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing I look for, and listen, I open every single email. It doesn't matter if it's a cold email, if it's a warm intro, it doesn't matter to me because I believe ideas can come from anywhere. They don't need to be introed from someone I know. Just email me. It's Leah at fuelcapital.com, right? And so I will read every email. And the number one thing I look for is this a founder product fit? Is this a purpose-driven founder? I had a great call just a couple weeks ago with a founder that cold emailed me. It was like 4th generation building this business, but hadn't used technology for many generations, was applying a technology approach. Great call. Came in from a cold email. Super interesting idea. And so it's just like finding those people that are really passionate about what they're building because they have a purpose behind it. There's a story behind it. Building a company is really hard. you're going to hit walls. I want to see that you're not going to figure out a way around them. I want to see how you're going to bust through them. And I think the best entrepreneurs are going to bust through those walls because they have so much purpose and so much passion behind what they're doing. So that's the number one thing I look for.
I love that, Leah. It's a long game. Entrepreneurship is daunting. Goodness knows. You got to stay in the game, whatever it takes. And if you don't have that willpower, that endurance, good luck. Good luck to you. 7 years in, and we know we're just getting started. Day one here. Leah, it's day one for you and everything you're building. So we want to leave our audience with any ideas that how to stay in touch with you, what you're producing now. Twitter, obviously, we plugged earlier, but how can folks get more Leah Solivan in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter, follow Fuel Capital. We're on Instagram as well. Email me, leah@fuelcapital.com. And yeah, we love looking at consumer deals, marketplace deals, anything early stage seed we'll take a look at, and are just excited about seeing all the opportunities out there.
As Dan Russo in our audience just wrote, Leah is a badass of all badasses. I think with that, we're going to wrap. Leah, Fuel Capital, TaskRabbit, thank you so much for joining us on Momentum Audio. Beast.
Oh my God.
That closing comment.
She is the Beast. Yeah. I love this. Running through walls. Beast. Badass of all badasses. Done. Mic drop.
I mean, I don't know if this is new material, but she's an ecosystem to herself.
I like that.
She's an ecosystem to herself.
I like that. Leah, feel free to use that. You can use that line.
Copyright it. She's dropping her email to the Next Gen audience saying, I'm open for business, especially and only if you are personally tied and invested in your venture and in your mission and can make it all the way.
That's so powerful. I mean, Jay, we talk about it all the time. When we were getting started, is it a pro or a con that we've been doing this 7 years and we're here? It's a pro. Game over. We're still here. We're still here.
That was dope. Next Gen fam, thank you so much for joining this. If you're watching this live or watching this afterwards, you're on a podcast platform, we're in your ears. Momentum Audio, we're here to help. We're here to help entrepreneurs. We know it's hard. We know it's risky, but we know it's so freaking worth it.
We see you.
Keep building your dreams, y'all. We love you guys. Reach out to us, nextgenhq.com. Get in touch. Huge thank you to Jamie. Huge thank you to Leah. Everybody on the Fuel Capital team. You guys are all badasses. Much love, everybody.
Love you all. Catch you soon, team.
Peace.